The first bones showed on a winter day. A woman walking her dog along the ridge trails on the city's far edge saw something pale in the sand. It was not driftwood. It was not a deer. The shape had the wrong joints, the wrong echoes of a life. She froze, then called 911. Patrol cars rolled out across the dirt as the sun sank. Officers stepped lightly, as if a raised voice could bury what the wind had uncovered. The West Mesa faced west into blue distance, and the ground, as always, held steady and let the noise fall away. The dig began. Evidence techs set flags that fluttered in the wind and taped off grids with string like a checkerboard. At first, the shovels moved like tapping a sleeping animal. Then the ground gave up truth in clumps, and the truth kept multiplying. One set of remains became 2, 2 became 5, 5 became 11. The West Mesa said little. It offered small facts, beads from a cheap necklace, a ring with a missing stone, a hoodie string in yucca, a healed fracture that told a story about a fall no one else had seen. They found shoes that matched the discount racks on Central. They found nails grown out and painted over. They found a single eucalyptus seed in a pocket, a clue with a passport stamp no one expected on a dusty mesa in New Mexico. The medical examiner worked from teeth and scars. Families arrived with photographs. My girl, my cousin, my friend. She vanished in the summer and we had no answers. Every new name pressed down on the others, the way we stack what we love in the only space we have. Knowledge came slow, because knowledge always does, and nothing feels heavier than knowledge we begged for. The pattern said the same thing over and over. The women were young and poor and had been pulled to the street by hunger, addiction, or a man promising rent money if they went for a ride. Some were mothers who left laundry in the machine and never made it home. Some were daughters who walked out under an uncaring sky. The southeast side, the motels with buzzing signs, the car lots, dusty lots, breathed a rhythm that made girls invisible until they vanished. Addiction and survival move on the same timetable as fear. The killer lived inside that rhythm like a fish inside current. Albuquerque was small when it wanted to be and big when it had to be. In those years, it was both. High desert light, cottonwoods by the river, tight neighborhoods, and a strip of Central that swallowed people whole. When the bones came up, the city's heart jerked like someone had grabbed wires under the dash. The anger carried. Underneath, find them, name them, tell the truth. People asked why the missing reports hadn't braided together sooner, why help came late, and why some calls went to voicemail for years. Detectives ran down every lead, the kind that arrive on slips of paper and the kind that show up in tired eyes. They talked to pimps and men with inked knuckles. They talked to motel clerks who remembered a room number forever. A truck driver said he saw a girl climb into a dark SUV near the freeway on-ramp. A neighbor said a man dug at night. A cousin said a boyfriend controlled everything and kept his boots by the bed like they were ready to walk out on their own. Every story came with a shadow. Every shadow fit the case until it didn't. The city had a suspect for a while, a man who smiled for mugshots like a game he had won and moved through women like smoke through screens. He was violent and lucky. He was also dead before the dig finished, found in another state with his last ride behind him and no chance to answer questions. A different man, across town, poured concrete and kept quiet behind a doorbell camera. Every tip collapsed. Still, the files thickened, because no one who works a case like this knows which fact will finally stop sliding and lock into place. The Mesa gave names back one by one. The youngest was 15, the oldest in her 30s. Their faces came to the front page, then to a display case where mothers waited for news that would not crush what remained. The list of names became a chorus people learned by heart. A cousin remembered a laugh that filled a kitchen. A grandmother traced a scar above one eyebrow. A daughter said her mother could split an orange with her thumbs and make it look like a flower. The West Mesa sits like a table against the sky, scraped flat by wind. From the ridge, the sandias turn pink at dusk, and the volcano cones go black. Whoever left them there knew the desert. Sand loosens with rain and tightens when air is dry. A city's edge hides small graveyards in plain sight. He chose a place where the skyline looks honest and the dirt listens. He walked the same trails joggers used in bright shoes and left women where only the oldest light would see them first. At night, searchlights made a roof. Detectives went home smelling like dirt and lay awake. You can't unsee the zipper of vertebrae. You can't unknow a mother's voice breaking at the word remains. The next day began the same way. Coffee burned dark, boots on, questions repeated. Street teams offered rides. Outreach workers handed out cards with a hotline number and a promise. Some women took them. Some said yes and called. Some said nothing because yes costs more than anyone in a bright vest can pay. Technology offered delay. DNA matched names to bones. Cell towers turned numbers into maps of movement along Central and out toward the Mesa. A search warrant dragged a computer's hard drive into daylight. Pieces locked at the edges, the middle slipped as if the killer still pressed the pieces, nudging the pieces out of true. Years passed and slowed at anniversaries. A cross went up above the dirt with 11 small names and space for the woman still missing. On certain days, families brought flowers that went brittle and photographs that didn't. They stood and prayed. They promised the wind that they were not going away. The city built apartments where the scrub had grown, and new tenants jogged the trails unaware of the ground beneath. Children learned to ride bikes on streets that didn't exist when the first bones came up, and sometimes their parents glanced west without meaning to, as if guilt could be inherited like a house. The killer has a name somewhere. It sits in an old file, or is etched into a headstone, or stares from a license in a drawer. He stalked sidewalks at 2 a.m., weekly rooms, and back seats clean enough to pass but easy to forget. He knew the habits of police and the limits of compassion. He picked women who had no net, and if they had a net, he cut it. After the dig and the news, the city kept breathing. Summer thunderheads stacked over the mountains and broke harmlessly in heat lightning. The river kept its slow green talk, and coyotes sang because there is gravel out there and used the holes we dug as new ways to sing. At dusk, you hear tires on I-40, a dog by the arroyos, a far horn. You hear wind over gravel and the rattle of yucca. You might imagine being led here in the dark by a promise with a car door attached. You might wonder how fast the sky widens when fear reaches your throat. The mesa does not answer. It keeps its long silence and waits for the next storm to write a new chapter in dust. Some nights the city is so bright you can see its glow from miles away, and it looks like safety until you remember how often safety is only a word we say to ourselves between breaths. The case file is tidy. People inside it are not. There are men who falsely confessed for attention, and men who could have confessed and didn't. Mothers still drive the old routes and count empty corners. Women who went home carry survivor like a scar. Detectives still wake at certain rings. A clerk on graveyard shift keeps a notebook of receipts because you never know which routine will matter. A nurse in triage keeps a spare kit in her trunk because the worst stories rarely start in daylight. A chaplain carries a list of names, folded soft by years, because names deserve to be carried. 11 women, 11 families, one city that learned what it means when a killer chooses a place you thought loved you back. The West Mesa became a record of neglect, but the story you're hearing does not end with a villain unmasked under a hard light. It ends with a question that will not leave the door, a city that keeps looking, and a wind that reminds us we are small. Somewhere there is a photograph of a woman you don't know, laughing while someone off camera tells a joke. Remember her mouth, the light in her eyes, the way one moment is supposed to lead to another and another. Remember her. Remember them. Thank you for listening to The Lantern's Tale. Subscribe for more true stories, if you dare.